Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. Mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. It's Thursday, so it's storytelling day. This is called The Spirit in the Bottle from Grimm's. Once there was a woodcutter who worked so hard to try to make a better life for his son, so he gave him money so he wouldn't have to do heavy labor and he could go get an education. And so he did really well in school and in the university, but school was like it was now. You run out of money, you can't have the education, so he had to come home. So his father said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I think I'm going to work with you." He said, "You haven't worked a day in your life. Look at your hands; they're pink and soft." He says, "No, just get another axe and I'll help you with the wood cutting." He said, "I don't even have an axe." He says, "Borrow one from your neighbor. We'll work twice as much and we can pay him back soon." Well, against his better wishes, the father said, "Fine." So they went out and they started chopping wood. But if you've ever chopped wood and your hands are raw, you get calluses like really, really quickly. And so by an hour into the whole thing, he said, "Oh, I got to rest." He says, "You see, this is what happens when you don't know how to work." He says, "Listen, why don't you go take a break?" So he went off, and father said, "Where are you going?" He says, "Oh, I'm going to look for birds' nests." He says, That's it? You're looking for birds' nests? Oh, God, go on. So he went out, and a long time or a short time, whatever time it takes in these stories, he passed by this huge old oak tree. It was so broad, like if 10 people were holding their hands in a big circle, they'd barely encompass it. And he thought, gee, that's really interesting. And as he passed by, he thought he heard a voice calling to him, first like a low, low little murmur. "Help me. Let me out. Help me. Let me out." What would you do? Well, he went back to the tree, and there, down at the roots of the tree, was a small bottle, and in the bottle was this mannequin-looking type of frog-type man saying, "Help me, let me out, let me out." I thought, well, that's really interesting. What would you do? Well, he popped the cork on the bottle, and all of a sudden this big gush of smoke came out, just like the genie in Aladdin. He says, "Ah, great. Now, for having released me, I'm going to break your neck." He said, "What? I gave you your freedom from that bottle, and this is how you're going to repay me?" He says, "Listen, 1,000 years ago, I said anyone who let me out, I'd give him a prize. 500 years ago even, but then I said, forget it. The next person who lets me out, they're done." And so, thinking on his feet, the young man said, "Wait a second. I'm not afraid to meet my maker, but I have to ask you one question. Do you really expect me to believe that someone as big as you, as boisterous as you, was ever in that bottle?" He said, "What do you think? I don't spit words of truth? You think I'm in that bottle because I'm a nice guy? I'll show you." So the spirit went back into the bottle. He put the cork back in the bottle. He flipped the bottle back to the roots of the tree and started to walk away. And I said, "Wait, wait, 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 don't go, don't go. I promise you, if you let me out, I'll give you a treasure." So the young man thought to himself, "This is a very stupid spirit. I mean, maybe I could trick him again if he decides to do anything." All right, so popped the cork in the bottle. The genie came out again. He says, "All right, where's my reward?" So he gave him this magic piece of cloth, and he said, "If you touch this end to it, it'll cure any disease or wound, and if you touch this end to something, it'll turn it into pure silver." So the young man said, "All right, let me see it." He took his axe, he gashed a hole into the tree, he touched the part of the cloth that would heal any wound to it, and the tree bark completely healed over. "All right, well, thank you very much." So he went back, and of course his father was really pissed that he's been away for so long. But he told him what happened, or he didn't tell him what happened. He put his axe back in his pack, and he didn't realize that the axe hit the cloth, and the cloth turned the whole axe to silver. So when he went back to work with his father, the first time he hit the tree with the axe fell apart. And the father said, "Oh, now see what you've done." He says, "Don't worry about it. I have this magic cloth." And the father thought he was just totally out of his mind. But when we went back in town, the truth was, the silver of his axe was so expensive that the jeweler in town didn't have enough money. He said, "I'll have to give you some on account, and then I'll get the rest for you later." So that's what happened. He went back to his father, and he gave him a couple of hundred for a new house, and he gave him extra money to replace the axe that he broke of his neighbor, and then he went on to be the most famous healer in his time because he could heal any wound, and he didn't have to work for money, so he could give his services free to everybody. And that's the story. And they say he'd still be healing now if death didn't come to everybody. All right. So it's a really interesting idea, but you're looking up the bird's nest for something high in the sky where you find your real connection is in the roots. But you have to learn how to take that spirit out of the bottle and deal with it with some kind of conversation in order to engage it. And yet, if you can, it may confer to you some benefit. All right, so for my journal writing people today, where are you? I ask you this question. How did your education complement or influence your creativity? Whether your education came in academia, from street smarts, or just learning on the job. How did your education complement or influence your creativity? Let me know how you view it in your life. I'll tell you what was happening in mine. All right, now my teacher, BKS Iyengar, always says, your body is a laboratory for perpetual research and investigation. There are no shortcuts in this path. There are no vain promises to the gullible. And even though it may take a long time to get the deepest benefits from practice over time, there are gifts along the way from the very first day. Because yoga will transform the person who sees and not just what they see. Now, part of it is learning how to pull away from too much interaction in the social sphere. And you have to find that through your own kind of detachment, positive detachment, not antisocial withdrawal. But that kind of solitude has an impalpable beauty and grace that only you can find in the silence of your own experience. And you let go of using any labels to denote fixed stages or states, because there are no such things. They're just infinite gradations of movement. Your status changes according to the amount of truth and objectivity that you're able to discover. And it's deep. Only the dictionary retains the assumption of brevity, that you can do this in all possible directions. No, some of these things are vast, incomprehensible, inscrutable. And we do the best we can to try to define it, but a God defined is a God confined, so we don't do that. Now, we talked about the Kundalini all during this week, and when we move up to the brow, the Ajna, the command center, sometimes called the third eye or the inner guru, it's like the second chakra turned upside down. So now the love is not given towards one person, it's given to the divine beloved, because it aims for identity here and not just a relationship. And then once you get that intuitive flash, you have that self-transcending shift to the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petal lotus at the top of your head. And that's where you go beyond Maya, beyond the world of apparitional existence, phenomenal existence, material existence. And once you yoke your ego to the source of consciousness, and the individual soul is connected to the universal soul, it's game over, freedom for you. Now, I hope that you all learn through your yoga practice first, because I learned this on the mat, and then you transfer it to the rest of your life. Learn to enjoy the capacity to receive criticism rather than learning how to be hurt or defensive by it. It's brutal honesty that's going to change your mediocrity and pop you out of whatever rut you're in into concrete positive action. Now, my rabbi reminds us that if you compare your life to an unpolluted stream, but in the course of existence, the living waters always get muddied in some way with different foreign substances. And the inner work that we have as we grow older is to help precipitate out all those contaminants that enables us to return to the clarity of our true nature, which is precious, unique, unrepeatable. We are those experiments of the universe becoming aware of itself. So just remember, it's so silly when people say, oh, they want to be reformed, they want to help, really? You just don't tell me what to do, how to do it, how to do anything different. How can you change if you have that attitude? So remember, your thoughts are destiny. Your thoughts tend to materialize as the experience by the pattern that you keep going on in your head day by day, all day long. It's all together in your hands. So remember that spirit in you is stronger than anything you have to meet. And I hope that gives you the resilience to face whatever you have to face. Once again, 40th anniversary of the Yoga Circle. Thanks for everybody out there who played a part. I'd love to hear from you, see what you're doing now, and I hope that you continue to hit the mat.